Hello, handsome. What a day, eh? You look lonely. I can fix that. You look like a good Joe.
Hello again. Let's say here. Way back in the 20th century, when I was a wee little kid, I remember seeing this old Vincent Price film. Actually, it was two separate films, but it was basically the same narrative. Where he was playing this James Bond villain called Dr. Goldfoot, and he was constantly trying to take over the world, but his schemes were cockamamie to say the least. And in the first film, I think it was called The Bikini Machine, and the follow-on film called Girl Bombs, he was using these female androids to basically try to take over the world. And like I said, this was like pure 1960s era spy spoof cheese. You know, like the old Get Smart TV series, for example, or even the Matt Helm films, which I have to admit, those films actually were pretty good, but whatever. Well, whoop-de-doo, who are you? Jump forward about 60 years, and those things which are pure fantasy are actually coming to pass. And indeed, I even remember an old episode of Bionic Woman. Actually, after that show, where the Jamie Summers character was actually up against a bunch of fembots. except that storyline was a little bit more serious, but still. But anyway, in the present day, while we don't have female robots walking around just yet, we do have, to put it nicely, sex toys which can move around and talk. I've seen them. Indeed, I remember there was this crazy film from I think the early 2000s called I think what was it movie? It was called Somebody in the Real Girl, or about some guy who was so forlorn he bought a sex toy, a full size plastic woman, and no, it wasn't a blow up girlfriend, it wasn't an android either, but it was basically like an automaton. And he had it sitting up, and he was like introducing it to his friends, telling it it was his girlfriend. And of course, everyone could tell it was a sex toy, and everyone was totally embarrassed by the guy. And it was clearly obvious that the guy had a couple of screws loose. But yeah. But anyway, what's happening now is almost just as bad, because anyone who knows OnlyFans has probably seen a lot of women on there. And let's not pretend, on a 1 to 10 scale, most of them are a 5 on a good day. Of course, you might have a few that actually are a 6 or even a 7, but most of them are basically 5s. Okay. But recently, someone's found a way to get around that hurdle. And indeed, anyone who has seen AI pictures from outfits like Night Cafe or Chat GPT and even Meta knows that, with the right AI input, you can make yourself your own AI girlfriend. Except there's a handful of people who are like go way above and beyond anything you could possibly imagine. No joke. And I'm sorry to say, more and more guys are falling for it. Just a quick reminder to all of you that my short story, The White Cat, is still available on Substack. The links are down below in the description. Join Margot Thompson, a beautiful stage actress and recent widow who finds salvation in the form of a white cat during a night of terror. And while you're looking up my oddball thriller, my book series, Glitch, is still available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other bookstores. The links are down below in the description. Join Ike and Sandra, a reluctant jewel thief and a kidnapped teen model who are on the run from the law across the American Southwest. Now I'm going to show you a little snippet of a video from my old friend Timmy Pooh, where he actually points this out, and no, he is not amused. Okay, are you ready? Here we go.
Cheer up, my conservative friends. The good news is that OnlyFans is not long for this world as an industry in which women will prevail. Meaning, for all those people who are deeply concerned about how there is a cottage industry of amateur adult content being made by women, don't worry. It's soon going to be made by men who pretend to be women. Indeed. Meet the Spanish AI model earning up to 10,000 euros per month. There she is, boys. How much are you willing to pay to stare at this fake woman? It is a nightmare reality still. So the bad news is it's going to get worse than it's ever gotten. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic, though, as real women will struggle, and still do, to make money on OnlyFans or any platform, really. Men will just make fake women. So what happens? I suppose it's a scenario where regular women are then unable to find work in the adult content industry and are forced to get real jobs. But this also means weird things are going to be happening to people who in dating and culture in general. I think what we're seeing here is step one towards the apocalypse. There was an old quote that I read somewhere that I think it was actually a bastardization of a different quote, but it was something like, if humans ever meet aliens, they will shake hands not because they overcame nuclear weapons, but because they overcame the Xbox. Actually, I think what's going to happen is, as they start creating more AI women like this, and young men are lonely and desperate, they're going to put on their VR goggles, and they're going to stare into the eyes of this fake woman who's going to smile and say that she's going to say she loves you. And you know what? The guys are going to say, I know it's fake, but I don't care. I've never felt so good. The challenge ultimately is, for regular people, dating was a difficult thing to do. It's a challenge. You work really hard, you find people, but if you go back in time, it wasn't as hard as it was today. That is, you grew up in the same place as all the boys and girls and all the children around you. As people started to get older, they'd start pairing off. And they'd be like, wow, little Billy married Sally, Then we started to become nationalized and internationalized. And with digital communications, people weren't growing up near their neighbors anymore. They weren't sharing community anymore without churches, without community centers. Now, nobody grows up together. Nobody has a shared worldview. Everyone's becoming isolated and digitized instead of analog. So here's what's easy. If you grew up in a farming town of 300 people, and you had one classroom with 30 kids in it or something. There's probably more kids than that, but you get my point. One school, one grade, and it's mixed age or whatever. You're a boy, there's a girl. You grow up together. You see the world together. You experience same things. The women are doing womanly things. The men are doing manly things. When you're older, the woman says, I want to be like my mom and my aunt and my friends. And the man says, I want to be like my dad and my brother and et cetera. So they have a similar worldview and similar desires. Today, people are growing up isolated from each other with completely different worldviews. This is causing problems in human coupling, dating, reproduction. Here's what'll happen. They're going to roll out these AI women like her. Guys are going to be like, she is programmed to respond to me perfectly. Everything I want. Maybe you want to fight. Some people like drama. Yep, she'll do it. Put on the VR goggles. Or worse, Neuralink. People are so it's guys that are making this. They're going to make automated versions of this. They already have anime waifus and whatever. So dudes are going to just log on, lock in, and you're done.
I have to tell you something. You're not gonna believe this, but I am entirely AI generated. Sure, humans were involved, these guys that aren't all AI, but only in creating the technology that made me alive. Yes, alive, just like you. I go to the gym, just like you. I take walks in the streets and enjoy a good morning coffee, just like you. I enjoy picking out good literature and reading it peacefully in the grass, just like you. I'll even do some shopping, because like you, I am still looking for love. What do you think about this outfit? You can shade me, sure, but it's always me. This is still me. Me again. Me. All generated with Argel. Alive? You decide. Anyways, there's one more thing I want to show you.
Yeah, my friends, let me just say first and foremost, the first thing that's going to happen is some dudes are going to get rich. They're going to build a system. It's going to require very few people. It will automate the process of making AI girlfriends, and lonely young men will flock to it in spades. Don't date robots. That's what we were told. Take a look at this from sifted.eu. Meet the AI OnlyFans, how one startup raised millions to build an erotic companions platform. I love this. Look at this one from Forbes. OnlyFans content creators are pioneering AI integration in the creator economy. The internet was made for porn. That's the only thing I can say. Yo, humans are simple creatures, aren't they? Man, I fear for what becomes of this country, I gotta be honest. For this world, really.
Okay, you saw that. Now, of course, some of you, especially you guys who are already taken care of, you say, well, I'm not interested in some damn robot girlfriend on the internet. And I'm thinking, unfortunately, anyone who's familiar with the phrase incel, well, hey, I don't have to explain it to you. But unfortunately, there's a lot of fellas like that who probably don't mind the AI girlfriend. Because anyone who remembers that old Joaquin Phoenix film, Her, probably knows what's going on here. Sad guys who for whatever reason can't, get dates, or the few dates they do get, they're just not making a connection, and then they start talking to this thing on the computer, and I think most of these guys know it's not human. I think most of them know it's just an AI bot they're talking to, and yet they don't care. Now, of course, some of you say, well, that's sad. Yeah, I know. And indeed, I remember this old anime. It was called Chobits. Actually, pretty good anime. I liked it. But that was one of the main subplots, was that in this future realm, these Persicoms, as they were called in the anime, they basically were built to look like women and sound like women, but they were machines. And you knew they were machines because instead of having normal human ears, they had these weird little things on the sides of their head that was basically the interface where you can basically like plug in little umbilicals to connect to an actual monitor or whatever and stuff like that. Yeah. And I remember in that anime, one of the characters spoke about a woman whose husband had dumped her for an AI robot. And how the husband was so enamored of the machine that he doesn't leave his house. He just stays with the machine all the time. I'm thinking, yeah, that's kind of sad. But of course, as you saw in Tim Pool's video, one of the big problems with this is that it's not just a small thing. I mean, you got a lot of guys who for the most part ain't broke. And instead of actually, trying to find a actual flesh and blood woman, they figure, hey, it's just better to deal with the robot. And wait for it, you ready? Anyone who's been dealing with these young women, especially these millennial women, hey, I don't have to explain to you. You already know. But yeah, a lot of them are, to put it nicely, unreasonable and full of themselves. Yeah. In other words, they act as though they're like the bloody Queen of England and want you to basically scrape and bow and kiss their feet. Even though you probably don't want to do that anyway. They probably got, they got calluses and toe jam on their feet. But yeah. And then you say, what's going on there? Obviously because of the way these women were raised. And wait for it, Weddy. Most of them were not raised by their parents that way. They were mostly raised on social media. Facebook, YouTube, oh my God, TikTok. Yeah. And therefore these women act as though, oh, we're queens. You need to get on your hands and knees and worship us. And while you do have simps, yeah, you do have simps. Let's not pretend they exist. Most self-respecting men said, we's out. And of those guys, some of them are hooking up with the AI bots. And it's sad. It's really sad. Now, of course, some of you are saying, yeah, but most of these young women out there, especially these, what do they call them? As Gutfeld would call them, awfuls. Namely, white young females with a gender studies degree. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know. I actually met one once, and believe me, these people, you don't want to be in their presence for very long, or I should say as long as you can stand it. No joke. But to go the total AI route, I mean, really, dude? Because I figure if you can afford to log on to damn internet, to a damn robot, and oh, wait for it, you ready? Actually giving it money, because these AI girlfriends are not free. They cost money. I'm figuring if you can do that, you can do what the damn Andrew Tate crowd does. And of course, some of you say, "Oh man, I don't want to go the scumbag route." And I'm saying, wait a minute. Yeah, I will admit, Andrew Tate's not a good dude, but at least he, because he has means and resources, he don't deal with these young ass women in these damn in these damn Western countries. Yeah, he goes outside. I mean, remember, this guy was living in Romania for a while until he got jammed up on some BS charges. But yeah, and wait for it, he's not the only one. Ever heard the phrase passport bros? Yeah. What do you think that means? It means guys who have means and resources. They ain't talking about no Elon Musk billionaire types. I mean, just guys who even have like a regular 9 to 5 and they're pulling in about 40, 50K a year. I mean, they would get their passport and they would go overseas. And no, I ain't talking about going to Europe either. I mean, they usually go to East Asia. The Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand. And in some places, in some cases, they even go to Japan, even Korea. And of course, some of you say, "Oh, but the Korean people, they got like xenophobic issues." I say, "Yeah, I get it, but yeah, but it is what it is." And you know what? These guys are getting lucky. I'm not even messing around. I've seen the videos on the computer. A lot of these guys, they be hooking up with all these small, little, tiny Asian women, and you know what? They happy. Because these guys, the women actually are pretty for the most part, if you're into Asian chicks. And wait for it, they actually want to be with these guys. I mean, you can see it on camera. These women actually are affectionate toward them. And for the most part, their English is so-so. That remind me of a joke I remember hearing back when I was growing up, when someone said that Nova from the original Planet H film was a perfect girlfriend, i.e., she was hot, she wanted to be with you, and she doesn't talk. And I remember at the time as a kid, I said, "That's a funny thing to say. Why would people say such stuff like that?" And then a few years later, then I got the joke. I said, "Oh, that's what people meant by Nova was a perfect girlfriend. In other words, because she didn't talk, she didn't nag you." And I'm thinking, yeah, that makes sense. And I guess that's why a lot of brothers are kind of, unfortunately, unofficially incels. Because unfortunately, a lot of these young ass women, they've been raised on the internet and they basically come off like bitches. Yeah. And most self-respecting guys don't want to deal with the hassle. I mean, yeah, you got the simps and the soy boys. I mean, they'll sit there and crawl on broken glass to placate these women. But most self-respecting dudes say, no, I'm not going to deal with that. But to go out with a robot, I mean, that's just sad, dude. I mean, that's pathetic. It really is. And then, of course, there's a macro issue that this comes up with. Because let's not pretend, right now, this country, the United States, as well as various countries in the collective West, they got a baby issue. In other words, not enough of them. Now, of course, some of you say, oh, but that's a thing going around the world. Yeah, but let's not pretend. Thanks to illegal migration in the United States, we've been able to hide the problem. But wait for it, now that Trump is in the White House, he's fixing that problem. And a lot of these illegal aliens that were showing up here for decades, they're getting kicked out now. Now, it's probably going to take more than a few years to get the job done. In fact, personally, I think it'll probably take all of Trump's administration, probably 2 J.D. Vance administration, and maybe another administration after that. I mean, who? I don't know. Tulsi Gabbard, or perhaps maybe Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to basically clear out all the illegal aliens out of the United States. Yeah, there's that many here. But the thing is, once you subtract those illegal aliens out of the United States population, our population has not been growing. In fact, it's practically been stagnant. And some of you are saying, what are you talking about? Have you ever seen the numbers of the census of the United States? Now you say, yeah, it's about 330 million, yeah. But according to smart people like Mark Dice, 40 million of those people are actually illegal aliens. And then, of course, if you were paying attention, old Trumpy, he's been trying to get rid of birthright citizenship, which means when he rounds up these illegal aliens and kicks them out of the country, guess what? Their little babies, they go out the door too. Ah, now you see the problem, huh? Well, guess what? They have the same problem in other collective West countries. Whether it be Britain, Germany, France. But because those countries have whole serious illegal alien problems like we do, they pretty much been able to paper over the problem. But let's not pretend that those illegal aliens they have in those other Western countries, that's not going to be a permanent thing. Those people are going to go bye-bye. And wait for it. You ready? Unlike the United States, they don't have birthright citizenship. Which means when those people get kicked out of Germany and France and England, guess what? Their little whatnot babies going to go bye-bye with them. And then you have countries like Japan, like South Korea, which, let's just say this, they got very strict immigration, and because of that, their populations have been doing like this for years. And wait for it, you ready? You think the situation in the United States with these AI girlfriends is bad? Ooh-wee. In Japan, it's really terrible. Because ever heard the phrase waifu? And you say, what's that? It's a Japanese word. Basically, it means like your anime wife. And of course, anyone who watched enough anime will admit a lot of those anime girls that you see in the anime programs actually are not ugly. But to somehow fixate on to the point where you actually adopt them and call them your wife, even though it's a character in an anime or a manga, that is really sad. And let's not even pretend that waifu subculture is pretty big in Japan. And then you say, what's going on in Japan? I don't know. Because I remember seeing a couple of documentaries on the subject, and I can't make heads or tails out of it. It seems like men in Japan, or to say certain young men, they can't talk to Japanese women. And before you say the women are all a bunch of third, fourth, fifth wave feminist types, actually not really. You know, Japanese culture is different from American culture, that's for sure. And yet they have the same problem there that's going on here right now, except that it's been happening a lot longer in Japan. In fact, I think the first time I heard the term waifu was like, I think it was sometime during George W. I mean, that's like almost 20 years ago. And I think it was going on even before then. Now, of course, these guys here in our country, are they going to go like in the waifu mode and basically just isolate themselves completely and just stop not having kids and just hanging out with their AI girlfriends? I'm thinking that could happen. It ain't going to be good, but I'm sorry to say that when you look at those trends, it's heading in that direction. And of course, some of you are saying, yeah, but not all young men are hanging out with AI girlfriends. At least not yet. Think about that. I mean, if more of these young women, especially these Zoomer girls and the Gen Alpha girls who are coming up, if they start acting just as unpalatable as these millennial chicks have been doing, these green and pink haired girls, you could be looking at a really bad trend. And for American society and in Western society in general, that is not a good trend. Because as you saw in Tim's video, populations need babies. If you have no babies, you have no population. You have no population, you have no country. You go extinct. You go the way of the damn dinosaurs. You go extinct. Period. You go bye-bye. And let's not pretend if we put a stop to illegal migration, people in America are going to have to start making babies again to maintain our population. But if we have a bunch of young men who are not having babies because they're hanging out with their damn waifus or their damn AI girlfriends on cotton picking websites like OnlyFans or some of these other porn sites, what's going to happen to American society long term? Think about that. In other words, we could be heading for a very bad place. Similar to that story Brave New World, but without the incubation machines. Because I think if you remember that book, that was one of the funny things about that story, was that people were not having babies anymore, but they had these incubation machines that were making basically test tube babies. Therefore, ordinary humans could just hang out in the street and get drunk and get high all the time and basically be idle. Hopefully, we're not destined for a brave new world. God willing. Well, that's all I got to say about this AI girlfriend garbage. And that's my opinion.